Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Donald Trump is desperate to get everyone to stop talking about Jeffrey Epstein and that so-called client list, even as he spent basically the entire day fielding questions about it, including if his own Attorney General, Pam Bondi, who was reviewing all these materials, told him his name appeared on the list.
What did she tell you about the review? And specifically, did she tell you at all that your name appeared in the
Oh, no, she's given us just a very quick briefing, and in terms of the credibility of the different things that they've seen. And I would say that, you know, these files were made up by Comey. They were made up by Obama. They were made up by the Biden, you know.
Why do you think your supporters in particular have been so interested in the Epstein story and so upset about how it's been handled? Why do you think that is?
Why they would be so interested. He's dead for a long time. He was never a big factor in terms of life. I don't understand what the interest or what the fascination is. I really don't. And the credible information's been given, but I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff. It's sordid, but it's boring. And I don't understand why it keeps going. I think, well, really only pretty bad people, including fake news, want to keep something like that going.
This whole thing blew up last week when Bondi, who has been pretty outspoken about hyping the existence of Epstein tapes and a client list and bombshell revelations, after going on TV to talk about all that was coming, then turned around and said, you know, it turns out nothing to see here. Some of Trump's most diehard supporters went somewhat predictably nuts, which led to the president sharing this rambling 400-word post, infamously beginning with, "What's going on with my boys," and in some cases, gals. He said MAGA should stop talking about Jeffrey Epstein, who never dies. But the Epstein files were written by the Dems to hurt Trump, including Obama got in there somehow. But they did not release them, which is a little tough to figure out how it was going to hurt Trump if they didn't release them. Then Trump asked about the JFK and Martin Luther King Jr. assassinations, as well as his big lie of a stolen 2020 election, which is, of course, nonsense, and then reiterates that no one cares about Jeffrey Epstein. Thank you for your attention to this matter. He was never a big factor in terms of life. You can imagine there was a full revolt in response to that post on Trump's own social media network. Some choice comments, each receiving thousands of likes, including, quote, "You promised us, sir. Putting your MAGA base down is not going to make this go away." Quote, "This statement breaks my heart, Mr. President." And quote, "This is going to cost you so many supporters, I being one of them. It appears you or a loved one was in on it and you want this to go away." It does not appear to be going away. Over the weekend, speakers at the conservative Turning Point USA conference practically had their torches and pitchforks out, demanding the Trump administration release the Epstein files.
I will not rest until we go full Jan 6 committee on the Jeffrey Epstein files.
Jeffrey Epstein was working on behalf of intel services, probably not American.
Who would you guys prefer, Bongino or Bonnie? Okay, 7,000 to 0.
They want Dan.
Release all the Epstein files, no matter the consequences.
How many of you are not satisfied with the results of the investigation?
I mean, even SNL comedian Rob Schneider is calling for the release of the Epstein files. But now, many of those same people are, you'll never guess, sheepishly falling right in line behind Donald Trump, who is demanding that they just stop talking about this whole boring Epstein thing that has nothing to do with it. According to one report, get this, Trump personally called Charlie Kirk, who co-founded and organized the entire conference, and then Kirk and others, I certainly softened their tone.
Plenty was said this last weekend at our event about Epstein. Honestly, I'm done talking about Epstein for the time being. I'm going to trust my friends in the administration. I'm going to trust my friends in the government to do what needs to be done, solve it, balls in their hands.
I'm going to talk about the Epstein files, and I'm going to make the case that even though there are unanswered questions about Epstein, it is in fact time to move on.
Now, as conservative influencers were eating their own about Epstein, the president was stealing the show on the one-year anniversary of the day he almost lost his life. He made a triumphant appearance at a global sporting event.
I mean, what does the world come to when you cannot rely on the integrity of Charlie Kirk and Dinesh D'Souza? In fact, Fox, where Laura Ingraham was talking about that triumphant moment we're going to cover later, Fox is barely covering Epstein at all anymore. And when they do, it's to repeat Trump's spin.
He said that those files were made up by Comey and Obama, that Pam Bondi has been handling this very well, and whatever decision is made regarding the Epstein files is up to her. There was a real dust-up between Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. The president, Daddy, as Mark Rutte has dubbed him, stepped in and ended that feud the other day with a lengthy post on Truth Social.
Even FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino, who was apparently so upset, so worked up, so angry and distraught and ready to quit over the Epstein stuff, didn't come to work on Friday, is back at work like nothing happened. Again, there's basically two possible explanations, right? Why the right is falling in line, dropping the story. The first is there really isn't an Epstein file as the public understands it, some sort of like, black box with these names that's going to tell everyone who in the power elite were doing horrible things with underage girls. That the whole thing was ginned up as this absolutely depthlessly cynical exercise by a bunch of MAGA folks to throw red meat to the MAGA base and draw in the support from kind of anti-system voters, right? Skeptical of institutions, low trust voters who are very into Epstein conspiracies. That's one possibility. Depthlessly cynical. There's nothing really there. They kind of knew that. The other possibility is that Donald Trump is, at the very least, a little worried about his potential inclusion in whatever Epstein files there might be. As we have documented exhaustively on this show and repeatedly during the campaign before that, Donald Trump's links to Jeffrey Epstein go back years. There's the video of the two men dancing together and leering at women at Mar-a-Lago. There's the magazine profile from 20 years ago where Trump says Epstein likes his women young. There's one of Epstein's accusers, the late Virginia Giuffre, saying she was recruited while working at Mar-a-Lago as a teenager. Then, of course, the guy who gave Epstein his sweetheart plea deal back in 2008, Alex Acosta, was chosen by Trump to serve in his first administration, which later became a scandal. Of course, there is also Epstein talking about his friend Donald Trump. This audio comes from writer Michael Wolff, who spoke to Epstein back in 2017, 2 years before his death. These recordings were published by the Daily Beast late last year, shortly before the election, in fact. Now, we should note this audio has not been independently verified by ABC News. We don't know how it's been edited, the context particularly, but take a listen.
How do you know this?
That was close to straight. So he tells everybody what they want to hear. And it's charming. And I'm telling you that I know 4 or 5 people who have recently sued him.
Again, this is 2017, right? This is before the whole thing blew up again in Trump's face, and he was arrested again, and then he charged, and then he is said to have died by suicide in federal Department of Justice custody under William Barr and Donald Trump. In response to the Daily Beast, Trump's teams called those recordings a false smear as well as election interference and accused Wolff of, quote, lying for attention. But we do know from that now infamous Fox News interview that Trump, in his own words, has been concerned about releasing the Epstein files.
So if you were president, would you declassify, you can answer yes or no to these, would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah.
Would you,
I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world.
He is concerned about the reputations of people involved and possibly named in the files and wants to protect them. That's his own. He says it's phony. I don't know.